All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide, toll-free, 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And our main website, where you can listen to the show 7/24/365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Exo Nation, we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic today. It's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that, but it's going to be totally interesting. I've got to tell you that my guest this hour is Monte Wolverton. He is a writer, artist, and internationally syndicated political cartoonist whose work has appeared in Mad Magazine, one of my all-time favorite reading materials. He is a former managing editor and design director for Plain Truth Magazine. He is an ordained minister and holds an MA from Goddard College in Vermont. And we're going to be talking to Monte about his book entitled Chasing 120, A Story of Food, Faith, Fraud, and the Pursuit of Longevity. And Monte, welcome to the X Zone. Great talking to you.
Thank you, Rob. It's great to be here.
Hey, Mad Magazine. Now, that is what I call true literature. Give me a Mad Magazine over Playboy or Hustler any day of the week.
Absolutely. Interestingly, my dad worked for Mad in the 50s and 60s, and I worked for them, or contributed work to them, in the 90s and the early 2000s. So it's kind of a family thing with us.
Tell me, Monte, how did you go from Mad Magazine to becoming an ordained minister?
Actually, it was all at the same time.
Wow.
My father worked in the golden age of comics in the 40s, and did some pretty outrageous stuff. Basil Wolverton was his name, for Mad Magazine, and all that time he was an ordained minister. In fact, he illustrated a story of the Old Testament. And during the time that I was working for Mad Magazine, which would have been in the 90s and the 2000s, I was also working for Plain Truth Ministries and the Worldwide Church of God. And neither of us saw any conflict. So maybe religious institutions need to lighten up a bit.
You know what? Mad Magazine, as I said, is one of my all-time favorite magazines. Alfred E. Newman and Spy versus Spy. You know, these are classics that, unfortunately, the youth of today have not been able to grasp. You know, it's a lot more interesting for them to go onto their Xbox and pretend they're shooting up people, stealing cars, or whatever. But I guess I'm just an old kind of fashion guy who really enjoys getting a good laugh out of life, seeing the humor that reflects on life as it really is. And I got to thank you guys for the great work you've done with Mad.
Well, thank you. It is sad, and reading Mad Magazine for good or better produces a certain healthy, I think, outlook on the world.
All right. From doing political cartooning to writing a book about the health food industry, what's the connection?
Well, I don't know. I like a variety of things. What prompted me to write a story about the health food industry was, I guess, when I was a kid. My family belonged to a very health-conscious church. We ate whole wheat bread. We drank raw milk. We avoided preservatives, avoided pork, shellfish, pesticides. We were organic way before organic was popular. I didn't drink a Coke until I was about 12, I think. And that was probably mostly good. And fortunately, my folks were pretty reasonable about that. But we also had elements of fanaticism. We avoided doctors. We didn't eat white bread. Didn't get any immunizations. And so I developed an acute sense of when good sense crosses the line into fanaticism. So when I wrote Chasing 120, what I really wanted to write was about how we react when religious institutions we rely on fail. And it seems like food is connected to religion, and in any faith there are things you have to avoid and things you have to consume at certain times and in certain ways. And so it was kind of natural for me to approach the problem from the angle of food and health, which are really peripheral when compared to compassion and love and the things that we're supposed to learn from faith and religion.
All right, Monty, stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our first 2-minute commercial break. XO Nation, my special guest this hour, his name is Monte Wolverton, and we're discussing Monty's book entitled, all right, do you have your pens on paper ready? You sure do? Chasing 120, the story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. Monty and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Monte Wolverton is our special guest this hour. www.ptm.org/120. Monty is the author of the newly released Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. How do all of these, food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity, how do they go together, and what's the story behind the title?
I will give you a brief synopsis without giving away too much of the plot, if that's okay.
Yep. Oh, that's fine.
My villain, whom I really like, and he's the favorite character in the book, Dr. Tyler Belknap, is an advertising man turned health guru from Texas. To cast no aspersions at Texans by that, but that adds a little character to him. Targets consumers with biblical-sounding promises of health and the guarantee of a 120-year lifespan if his followers or consumers will buy his products and do everything he says in his books. Some people get healthier, others suffer nasty side effects. Some of those people are swept under the carpet from psychoactive substances, from genetically modified plants that Dr. Belknap is developing in his secret underground research lab. And beyond that, Belknap and his cronies are using sort of mafiosi tactics to keep their edge in the market. And Belknap's creative director, Dave Whitman, and his wife Marcia suddenly find out that Belknap has been testing his products on kids for years at a special health summer camp he has up in the woods. And they discovered that their teenage son has been brain damaged from one of Belknap's psychoactive substances. So they have to face the fact that the charismatic leader, their beloved charismatic leader that they've worked for a couple of decades, is a crook. And that's as far as I can go without giving away the plot.
Now, is your character Tyler Belknap, is he fashioned after someone you know?
Not directly. He could be any sort of opportunistic huckster of any number of products. People who use manipulative advertising to get people to buy their stuff. But some readers might be aware of my family's connection with evangelist Herbert Armstrong, who died back in the 80s.
Yes.
and preached some pretty unusual things.
Yes.
And people might see a connection between Belknap and Armstrong, and that, of course, is my experience, my background.
Right.
Since he was an advertising man turned preacher like Belknap, and he successfully used his speaking and writing and advertising skills to pitch his product, which was religion. But the difference is Belknap is a crook, and a real sort of a snake oil salesman. And Armstrong, whom I knew personally and worked for, presented a lot of cover and graphic ideas too, was not a crook.
Right.
Belknap is fundamentally dishonest, but he believes his own false advertising.
Oh, so he'd be like a Jimmy Swaggart or a Tim Baker.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
He was not fundamentally dishonest. Armstrong wasn't.
I'm not talking about.
He believed what he thought.
Yeah, no, I wasn't making any insinuation that Mr. Armstrong was anything but an honest preacher. I was taking the negative aspect of your main character, Tyler Belknap, and comparing him with Jimmy Baker and who the heck what did I just say? Jimmy Swaggart. Yeah.
Jimmy Swaggart. Yeah. Well, Belknap is out. I won't say anything about those guys, but right. Belknap is a crook.
Well, I think the past speaks for itself when it comes to those two.
Yes.
Is it very easy in today's society with so many people looking for answers, looking for a better tomorrow, trying to understand what is going on in the world today, for the less scrupulous members of the clergy to bring them into the fold for dubious reasons?
I think it is always a temptation.
Mm-hmm.
There's good things and there's bad things. Some kind of regimen, whether it's food or like in Chasing 120 or religion, might be very beneficial. But you might be giving up your free will and most of your money, or all of your money.
Wow.
And you might need to examine more critically the claims and the guarantees that the person is making, whether they're religion or whether they're something else. You might need to check out the person's background and organization before you go off investing and supporting him or her, and investing not just money but your whole sort of being and belief system in them. You may end up putting up with some stuff you don't like, so you can have some benefits that you do like.
So, or when you were saying that people give up their free will, wouldn't that be a major sign of a red flag right then and there? If you're supposed to give up your free will, give up your identity, to follow without question, to obey without question.
That would certainly be a red sign for me.
Yeah.
Or a red flag for me. But having experienced an organization that was not as bad as some, but had elements of that, these things happen without you being aware of it.
Right.
And that's the way, because you trust people. People want to trust.
And I would imagine that when people go out looking for the answers and looking for the spiritual satisfaction that they're looking for, that they're very vulnerable at this time and very easy prey. Yeah.
And depending on what their life experience has been recently, having suffered loss or having suffered some great disappointment in life, they can be very, very vulnerable to unscrupulous people who will take advantage of them. And in some cases, those very people believe fully in what they're teaching, and they don't see a problem with it.
Tell me, where the Chasing 120, where does that come from?
The pursuit of 120 years. In the book, there's Tyler Belknap refers to Genesis 6:3, which has it's shortly after the flood, and God is saying something to the effect that people won't be living 800 years anymore. I'm downgrading their lifespan to 120. So my villain takes that out of context and guarantees people 120 years of life. This is not really too weird because there was one preacher that I heard of that actually did that. But if you did everything right, you could live for 120 years because God said that in Genesis 6:3. So.
And in today's society, people are living longer.
Yes, they are. Yeah. But this is more or less of a guarantee.
I didn't know there were any guarantees in life.
No, I don't think there are.
Yeah. When it comes to the state of religion today, do you, as an ordained minister, do you think that we're in the end times as talked about in the Bible in the book of Revelations?
Well, that's another teaching that that Dr. Belknap had. Are we in the end times? You mean, are we like within 10 or 15 years of everything collapsing?
Are we looking at the near future where we're going to have the horsemen of the apocalypse coming, the second coming of second coming of Christ and Armageddon? I
don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't believe we can know that. So I think it's probably a bit irresponsible for, I'm sounding judgmental there, for some people to use that as a
scare tactic,
a fear tactic, and go ahead and send me all your money because the end is coming real soon.
Yeah, you don't need it. I'll take care of it for you.
Yeah, you don't need it. I do.
Exactly. As an author, what was the hardest part about writing your book, Chasing 120?
I had to do some serious research about genetically modified foods, and especially the laws involving genetically modified foods. I contacted the FDA, did consulting with them, and they informed me that no, they were not happy with the state of labeling requirements or the laws that are extant now. So,
all right, Monte, you and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. When we come back, let's talk about GMOs because that's a very important topic, and let's maybe you can share with us some of the learning that you did as you were doing research for your book. And by the way, X-Zone Nation, Monte is the author of Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. His website is www.ptm.org/120. This is the X-Zone. My name is Rob McConnell, and Monte Wolverton and I will be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. You can listen to the X-Zone 724-365 around the world at www.xzoneradiotv.com.
I'm Rob McConnell, and welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Today on the X-Zone, the Roswell crash of 1947. In July of 1947, something crashed near the small town of Roswell, New Mexico. That something is believed to have been a flying saucer by millions of UFO enthusiasts around the world, headed by nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman. Now, Friedman has never seen any physical evidence of the alien craft or the remains of its alien occupants, but bases his belief on the stories that he has heard from locals and townspeople alike. According to the United States Air Force and other government agencies, the Roswell incident was not a crashed alien ship. Friedman and his followers insist to this very day that the governments of the world are covering up the fact that the aliens are here, and that the denial of the UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico is proof of this global government cover-up. Join me, Rob McConnell, for another story from the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology when next we meet in the X Zone, the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And if you'd like to send us an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV, and our main website, where you can listen to the show 7/24/365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest is Monte Wolverton, and he is the author of Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. And his website is ptm.org/120. Monte, when you were doing your research on GMO for your book, what did you find out?
Well, in the book, my villain is preaching against GMOs because he says it's not what God intended, but secretly he's developing genetically modified plants in his secret lab, and he is taking certain psychoactive substances and enlarging the amount of this substance found in particular plants, and then including those plants in his products to so that he doesn't have to list the product specifically on the label, or doesn't have to list the ingredient, the psychoactive ingredient specifically on the label, because perhaps the psychoactive ingredient is some new psychoactive ingredient that hasn't been identified. So when I did my research with the FDA, one of the things I asked them was, is this plausible? Is this scenario plausible? Because at that point, if they said, "Oh no, this can't happen," then I would have gone some other way with the plot. But they said, a little bit to my surprise, "Oh yeah, this could happen. That there are certain substances that we have that are heretofore undiscovered in plants, that if those plants were modified, could be enlarged and used by unscrupulous producers." And Chasing 120 has some rather dire implications about what can happen if we or someone unscrupulous tries to sort of circumvent evolution by tampering with genetics. And eventually something bad is going to happen. I mean, we're in denial if we think that the technology is just going to be practiced only by companies and people with the highest ethical standards. Come on. So for that reason, I believe, and apparently many others do, that we need good laws, that the public needs to know what's been done to the food that they eat and the products that they buy, whether that costs more or not.
So tell me, what do you think people will enjoy the most about your book?
I think a number of people have written in that they really like the characters. The characters are edgy and fun. Some people have commented on how much they hate Tyler Belknap.
Right.
And he really bothers them. So I guess I've done my job. I think if the characters were cast properly, it'd make a great movie. But what author doesn't think that about his own book? So
during the writing of your book and the research that you did, were there any aha moments?
I think perhaps there were a few moments when cause I was going through some difficult times. My wife died just as I was beginning the book.
Oh, my condolences.
Of cancer, and
God
she
bless
saw she saw the plan and said it was good. And then about a year later, I married someone else, and she was very, very supportive of the book as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think toward the end, as I worked with how the characters reacted to all these disasters that were happening to them, I think it was very good therapy for me.
Right. What, in your opinion, does the health food industry actually have to do with religion?
I think if you look at certain churches and certain faiths, food is very much a part of their practice.
So for example, we'll use kosher food.
Kosher food.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that the body is a temple,
right,
which is prevalent in Christian thought, and you'd better take care of it. I think that brings religious implications into what kind of food you eat. Of course, on the other hand, Jesus said something to the effect that, hey, you eat this, it goes in one end and it comes out the other, and it's of no consequence. It's what you're thinking that counts.
Yeah.
So that statement really needs to be balanced against the question of food. Food is an easy thing to do. You can get real picky about it and real fanatical about it. Having love and compassion for your fellow human being is a bit harder.
Well, that's true. That's true. Mind you, we were talking about, the food as it relates to different religious philosophies, and I'll tell you, I don't think it's a known fact that people take better care of their cars than they do their own bodies.
Yeah, with perhaps the exception of, well, actually, I take care of my car about the same way I take care of my body. I won't elaborate any further than that.
Yeah. What was the hardest part for you writing your book?
It was writing was easy. I think the hardest part was cutting out certain elements where I wanted to. The hardest part actually was the removal of certain characters. If you, some authors use take advantage of what's called a developmental editor. And I sent my first or second draft to the developmental editor, and she said, I don't like this character, you've got to get rid of him. So that's like murdering one of my children.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had to get rid of him, but all the stuff that he was handling, all the information, I had to give to one of the other characters to handle. So I think that was probably the hardest part of writing the book, which is that's probably a mechanical problem more than a huge philosophical problem.
How do you find the publishing industry these days with on-demand printing, Amazon.com, and the many online sources that are available for first-time authors? I
find it to be very, very competitive.
Yeah.
everybody's got a book, and everybody's out there.
Yeah.
So it's it's important to write to do quality work, but it's even more important after that to be able to find ways to promote it somehow.
Marketing is the biggest aspect of getting the book out there, and it's also the hardest part.
And often the creative people, of whom I am one, I think, are not the best promotional people. So it's hard to get your book out there. It's hard to promote it. It's hard to do that kind of work. It's easier for some people to actually sit in a room and write. That's fun.
Yeah.
But as a friend, a writer friend had on his office door a little thing that said, most writers like having written. He thought.
When you're
I
writing,
include myself in that.
When you're writing your book, do you see it in your mind's eye, and do you know what is going to happen before you sit down and write it, or is it a work in progress throughout the entire writing of the book?
There's a couple of different ways. One is that you start with an outline, and you pretty much follow the outline. The way I prefer is to start with the characters. I basically knew where I was going to go. You develop the characters, and then you let the character write the book. The characters write the book. They interact. Someone said, "Well, the end of your book wasn't very, it didn't turn out really nicely, and it didn't turn out satisfactorily." And I said, "Well, I was sitting in the background and listening to the characters interact with each other, and I was just writing down what they said, and that's the way it turned out." Which sounds a little weird, but
not really, because as I see an author, you're the director.
Yeah.
And the cast follows the director. Sometimes the director gives the member of the cast the freedom to embellish their character, their who they are, and they'll see where it goes from there. So I can understand exactly where you're coming from, and what you just said made perfect sense to me. However, when it comes to the person who gave you that critique, how many people do you know have written a book that has never been critiqued with a bit of negativity? Doesn't happen.
Yeah, I know some, and the books aren't that good.
Yeah.
because you need that. You really need somebody else to come in and say, "Hey, didn't you see this?"
I think that one of the biggest problems we have today with the ability of anyone to publish a book within hours, you just come up with the idea. People, I've seen this happen where they sit down at their computer and they just bang this book out. They don't give it to a focus group. They don't give it to an editor. They do everything themselves. Then they get copies of this book and they give it to their friends and family, who all love it. And then when it comes to marketing it and getting sales, they can't understand why they've got this great book that nobody wants to buy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's why my wife was helpful, because she didn't say that.
Yeah.
She's not afraid to. She went through it a couple of times and was at least as helpful in the developmental editor in helping me kill my babies.
But
don't take that out of context, by the way. It's
no.
bad.
Not unless I see it in an up-and-coming Mad magazine. No, you see, honesty when it comes to writing from your wife or from a friend who isn't afraid to say, "You know what, that doesn't make any sense," or "That's kind of dumb." When they say that, they're helping you. But people just want to be nice. They don't want to hurt feelings. And so many times I hear during the day, "Well, everybody loved my book, but I can't sell any." Well,
yeah.
Number one, how much money did you put aside for marketing? Well, I've got it on Amazon. Well, okay, who knows it's on Amazon? Well,
nobody, if they don't know how to go there and look for it.
Exactly. Well, what about your website? What website? There's so many things to take into consideration. And this is where the main publishing houses used to come in. That's why books were books. And that's why there was always that minority who would actually get their manuscripts into print. However, having talked to you for the last 40 minutes, I see that you've done all your homework. You've done all your research. You've listened to the critique. And I love your book.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. I think that it incorporates religion. It incorporates the food industry, which is very important. And, man, I really think you've got a great book here.
Well, I said thank you, but as a political cartoonist and one who enjoys a bit of controversy, I'm waiting for somebody to come along who really hates it. That would be helpful.
Well, you can send a copy of it to the director of the Food and Drug Administration, or you can send one to a member of clergy who is totally critical. I'm sure you'd get some negativity
I
there.
may do that.
Yeah. Listen, you and I have to take our final break, Monte. Please stand by. Great having you with us, by the way. Exonation. Monte Wolverton is our special guest. www.ptm.org/120. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from where? Our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. Monte Wolverton is our special guest. And Monte's the author of Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. His website is www.ptm.org/120. First of all, Monte, it's been great having you here on the show tonight. I want to wish you the best of success with your book.
Thank you. It's been great being here.
I love the fact that, like I told you at the very beginning, Mad Magazine, the #1 read for me. I loved it. Hats off to everyone who's ever done anything with Mad Magazine, because they've brought more smiles to more faces than any other magazine. And yes, I would rather read a Mad Magazine than a Hustler, Playboy, or Penthouse. Also,
that's saying quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I just say it as it is. That's the kind of guy I am. And what even makes you a better person than having worked with Mad Magazine and doing the great work you've done within the ministry, being an ordained minister, is you're an animal lover. So you're a great guy. Let's face it.
Well, thank you. I'll mention that to my wife, and I think she'll agree.
Oh, there you go. What is the final message that you'd like to leave with the X Zone Nation tonight, Monte?
I would like them to, if there's any takeaway thing from my book, or even if they don't read my book, first of all, I'd like them to be entertained by Chasing 120. And then I would hope that people would realize that even though our trusted institutions might fail, and that justice doesn't always happen in this life, and we have, as we were discussing off the air, there's so many things that are happening right now that are disturbing, that this is a temporary world. We're all being prepared in ways none of us can understand now for something far, far better and far, far greater. And if that sounds like, pie in the sky optimism, maybe it is. But I think that's the kind of the bottom line of faith. And that if you believe that, you will behave in a particular way toward your fellow human being.
And in my opinion, faith is the strongest power in the universe. Faith and belief.
Yes.
Can move mountains, can change hearts, can make the blind see, the dead to live. And we've seen examples of that in the good book. We've got about 40 seconds left, Monte. What words of wisdom would you have for any aspiring authors listening tonight?
Write and keep writing. Write creatively. Put down everything that comes into your head, and then switch gears and go through it with a critical eye, and learn to promote your work, because it isn't any good unless somebody reads it.
Exactly. Monte, where can people buy copies of your book?
It's available on Amazon, as you mentioned. You can go to the website that we mentioned, www.ptm.org/120, and you can order it there. And so that's where you can get it.
Monte, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Great talking to you. Look forward to the next time you join us here in the X Zone.
Thank you.
Take care, Monte. Exonation Monte Wolverton has been our guest. www.ptm.org/120. And Monte is the author of Chasing 120. And we'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I better give you the entire title. It's Chasing 120, a story of food, faith, fraud, and the pursuit of longevity. I'll be back on the other side of this news break. Don't go away.